So I want to talk to you about a fascinating way to study theology, love theology, but I've become much more engaged with it through narrative theology. And I want to introduce it in this way. I was in Belize teaching pastors for 5 years, doing what I had been taught, and finding out that it wasn't working that great. Started experimenting, found that when I switched to Bible storytelling with open-ended questions, it changed everything. Now, instead of listening to a lecture, we're all looking at a story together. We're unpacking the story together. Everybody has their own worldview. They have their own life experiences. They're using those tools to extract from the story, and we find out so much more. I did an experiment while I was there. I took a class and split them in half. Half had the normal reading and lecture. Half had a list of Bible stories chosen for certain doctrines, and that they had been taught how to extract the doctrines from those. So we did the whole course that way. At the end, they both had the same assignment. Give a group presentation on your findings. They could do anything. They could preach, they could write, they could sing, they could do posters. Didn't care what they did. Both groups had an hour minimum to present. And so at the end, the group that did the normal reading and writing, they did fine. They did quite well. We did notice even during the study, though, when it was break time, they took all their breaks. When it was lunchtime, everybody scattered, and then they came back. The group that was doing story often skipped their breaks. They went to lunch as a group. I followed them to see what was going on. They went around the corner to a little tienda, bought some things, came back. They never stopped talking about the story the entire time. They were so engaged. By the end, they gave their presentation as rapidly as they could. They covered everything and more. When they hit the maximum time, I tried to stop them. They said, "Oh, no, we're not finished yet." I said, "Okay, but you are." They had learned so much. Now, the test was to have those two groups do that and then switch. So the next month the plan was to switch. The story group did not want to switch. I made them because that was part of the test. But we did the switch. The same thing happened in reverse that time. We did assessments at the end of both of the courses, and the assessments, with the exception of one person, everybody, and some of these folks already had master's degrees. Some had high school degrees. Some didn't have any degrees. But what they said was they felt so much more engaged. They learned so much more through this model because they were learning from each other, learning from the stories, and learning from the Holy Spirit. One person said, "I prefer reading and writing." Her whole environment happened to be, she was a secretary at the best Christian high school in the country. And she was a student at the University of Belize. So everything she was doing was academia. And it was just her preference, which is wonderful, no problem. But it was fascinating to see how many others gravitated towards this. So what are we really talking about? We're talking about storytelling and allowing the story then to speak to us. We're talking about a flipped classroom. In a normal university in the States or in Western education, the professor gives assignments. Students go out and vet websites and figure out how to collect their data and bring it back. The professor then becomes a facilitator of that information as they share it. We do the same thing, except we don't send anybody away. They're not using computers. They're not vetting their sources. Their sources are what's in them and what they're hearing in the story. One beautiful thing about this is that doctrine is built not on single stories, but on a series of stories. So as they go through a series of stories, they're looking for particular things said in the stories about the doctrine of salvation. And they build their theology as they go. But it doesn't feel difficult. It doesn't feel daunting or intimidating to them because they're finding the information and extracting it themselves. There's a principle in Christian education that says it's not about how much the teacher can teach, it's about how much the student takes home. And this, because the students are doing the majority of the talking, they take home a great amount. An example was when the pandemic hit, we did this online with a group in West Africa. We experimented. We probably didn't do a great job, but we did what we could. But it was interesting to see part of the requirement was that they would have the first class together, and then they would get another 25% of their grade when they retaught someone else. Most of those taught small groups. From September to December of 2020, the 16 that I taught in the original class, some of them didn't do anything, but there were about a half a dozen that began to teach others who taught others who taught others. They went 8 generations, continually widening out in their numbers to 26,000 people in 4 months. We had not done that as an organization in 15 years. So it was amazing to see what they could do when they were given information in a way that felt right to them, that felt normal to them, that was part of their culture and society already. That empowerment was amazing. And the results that we heard back, many people found Christ. Churches were planted. So many things were started because they were the ones receiving and then reteaching. Very, very powerful tool. Other things that help it are visual table of contents, kinetic table of contents, other memory hooks that we teach the students so that they can remember 1, 2, 3, even 5 days worth of content without a written guide. Another side note that I'll add here for some of you skeptical professors, I know you. We wrote all of this out in the beginning. It was all vetted by Bible colleges because we're doing this at Bible college level. We had the written manuals. I found out that the teachers were not reading the written manuals. We converted them to visual manuals. Think infographic. Everybody was using the visual manuals. Now that's migrated even further into delivering those online as visuals and audios. And we notice in doing the checking, the stories are listened to 4 or 5 times each. The other pieces, just a couple of times, because the teachers learn it quickly. But they internalize those stories, share them with the students, and the students do the same. Through that process of engagement, they're internalizing the stories and becoming powerful teachers themselves.